Yay, live stream number 2. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that I'm kind of late. I have the same problem yesterday. I went to log in and Google had signed me out of everything. I hate when they do that. And I know everyone here has experienced it because anyway, hi. Say hello, don't be shy. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. I was like, tried to log in with my password and I couldn't remember it. I tried like 3 different passwords and then I had to figure out, oh, it sent me like a thing to my phone number and I had to go get my phone because it was downstairs. It was like a whole thing, but yeah. So who was here on Friday for the live stream? Anyone? Well, I want to say first of all that if you are not familiar with the story of Delia Day, to click the first link in the description, and that will take you to murderpm.com, which is my platform, and it sends you to, the first link will send you to the archive of all of the Delia Day articles, so you can familiarize yourself with the story. Thank you. Yeah, so if you aren't familiar with it, go check that out, or I can give a quick recap. Also, please subscribe to murderpm.com since it's my platform and it would be very appreciated and super helpful to me being able to do this full time and also to fund a documentary about the Delia Day story. And remember, if you have any questions, obviously it's an Ask Me Anything, so please ask your questions, whatever they may be. Last live stream, most of the questions had to do with my interview with Susan, how I got her to talk to me, and a few questions about like my own thoughts on the case. And then of course I talked about the police corruption because nothing was done. So that's something that is super important about this story. Like a lot of people think that it's about BDSM and it really isn't. That's just kind of a website that they had. But the story really, to me, is about the fact that someone killed somebody and the police did nothing. What draws you to the Delia Day case in particular? So partly it's because no one knew what happened. Like when I first heard about this 7 years ago, I went to Google it and couldn't find anything. Like there was the BME wiki and that was kind of it. I went on the Internet Archives and tried to see what people were saying about it at the time, and people just basically had theories. Susan disappeared for almost a decade. She came back in 2013 with a blog, kept that for a short period of time, and then deleted it. So she's just been totally under the radar. And I always had, like when I heard about this case, I always had, thanks for your question, Jimmy, by the way. But I always had this really like bad feeling like something is off about this, you know, something's like not right about this story. And I was right, like, and I wish I wasn't, but this story is absolutely not, if you don't go on Murder PM and you just read what other people are saying about it, like, it's not accurate. This story is so much bigger than that. And I also like the whole time period. It's the 90s and they had a software company and it goes into the early 2000s and they're really into music. Like Travis's favorite band was Ministry. and he would like apparently play Jesus Built My Hot Rod on repeat because it has that like continuous beat that I guess gave him some external motivation to keep working, and he would work throughout like all hours of the night. So I don't know, I really like that aspect of it. And I thought that the software business was cool. It was interesting to me. And then the fact that they did porn was also, of course, interesting to me because it's a couple building their site together. And partly there's been a lot of confusion about who wrote the site. So it was, my screen's doing that thing again. But it was, a lot of people felt like they had been conned because they had paid for this website by this woman named Delia, and people started wondering if she was even the one doing the writing, or if when they chatted with people or emailed, because Delia did a few interviews, people were like, was that even her? Or was that Travis that they were talking to? So some people did feel like they had been conned. So there's just so many aspects of this story. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized how messed up it was. Like the fact that the police did nothing, they barely contacted. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a thing. At the time when I started, I didn't know this, but that's kind of what drew me to the case. And oh my God, what am I saying? One of the main things that drew me to this case was Susan's artwork. Like I heard that she was an artist and did self-portraits. And I was like, whoa, I gotta see these. It's kind of weird because I love painting and photography, and I sometimes edit my own self-portraits. But I think that that's super common now because like we all have a phone and we can all take photos of ourselves. So using yourself as a model is like a very easy way to create content and art and whatever. But you know, at the time she was doing this in the early 90s, so she was using like a film camera and had to like print stuff out. Hi Allison, when was the last time you communicated with Susan? So the last time I communicated with her was November of 2019. At the time when I interviewed her, I did not have, obviously, the whole bank of interviews that I have now. I hadn't seen the autopsy report, the police report. I'd filed for those, and I tried to call a bunch of the police departments and the sheriff's office and the circuit clerk, and like no one knew anything about it. So point being, after I got that information, I tried to reach out to her 2 more times, but she did not get back to me. That's a whole story in itself. I talked about that in the first live stream, but Susan like won't talk to me anymore. We had kind of a falling out, but yeah. Any more questions? I'll talk about actually one thing that I have been asked a number of times is about their kids. So you may have seen the series I did, like Misconceptions About the Case. A lot of people believed that their 2 children were homeschooled, or sorry, what am I saying? Were at boarding school, so they did not live at home. But they actually, it's because they lived in a town that is run by kind of a prestigious boarding school, French Camp Academy, and a lot of people thought that their kids went there. So Travis and Susan could work on their adult content at home and their kids weren't there. Sadly, that is not the case. When I read the police report, I mean, the kids weren't old enough to go to boarding school. Hi, buddy. Dog came to say hello again. Hey, bud. What are you doing? I tried to show you, but he's trying to lick my feet. Hunter, he's like under my desk. What are you doing? Oh, thank you. Silly, silly puppy. Oh my God, he's so silly. Um, yeah, Hunter is so sweet. Aw. My husband just brought me coffee in one of my favorite glasses. Coffee just tastes different in a glass. But what was I saying? Oh, her kids. So their kids, they were both at the house at the time, and they were both very young. So they were in elementary school, middle school aged. They were they were 8 and 9, if I remember correctly. But so they were at the house. When I read the report, it did discuss the fact that there were 2 young children at the house, and CPS had to get them. And yeah, so that is unfortunate. He is very thoughtful and kind and makes good coffee. And a lot more people showed up for the last live stream. It's interesting. I tried to figure out like what times worked best for people on the East and West Coasts. So it might be kind of early. I don't know. It's like 5 p.m. for the West Coasters, but yeah. So that is a question that I got a lot. Travis, I also was asked, like, didn't Travis have a child on his own? And yes, he did. He had, not on his own, but from a previous relationship. He had a son with a woman named Ray, and his son had spina bifida, so he'd had to go through a number of different surgeries growing up. And at the time, he was living with Travis's mom. So he stayed with his grandmother in Lexington, Mississippi on their farm. So he was not present at the time of the killing. Yeah. But their 2 kids were there, and something I thought was interesting, I'll give you a little insight into the police report without giving like too much stuff away. But Susan was asked in her interview about, like, didn't the kids wake up during this? Like what exactly was their reaction to all of it? And she said that Travis would play Halo all the time and play loud music late at night because he seemed to struggle with insomnia. Like, he didn't get a lot of sleep. He had been up for over 24 hours by the time he fell asleep right before Susan killed him. So he definitely struggled with sleep issues. And Susan said that she thinks the kids didn't wake up when they were right across the hall. Like, they had their 2 bedrooms literally right. One was right across from Susan and Travis's, and the other was slightly down the hall. So in a small house like that, if someone shoots a 12-gauge shotgun, you're gonna hear it. But Susan said that she didn't think they woke up at all because he like played Halo and stuff. And I also thought that was an interesting connection because Susan said that Travis would go on business trips to San Francisco, and I had been wondering, like, for what? But San Francisco every year had this huge convention it was like Mac User and Mac World did a big convention, and Steve Jobs would show up and talk, and it was like this big thing. And Travis, being co-owning a software company with his brother Richard, would go to San Francisco and go to this like convention where Steve Jobs talked. And so I went back and I was watching videos from the time period, like late 90s, early 2000s, and Halo actually launched there. Like, showed at the San Francisco conferences, they premiered Halo as like, look at these new video game graphics type thing. And you could hear people in the audience being like, whoa, oh my God. Like, I feel like we take it for granted now, but Halo is big. I mean, I played it growing up with my like siblings all the time. I love Halo. So that was an interesting little connection that was made. Any updates on when the book is coming out? So it will be out soon, but it's still with the editor, and I know he's very busy. So I'm essentially just waiting for him to send it back to me, and then it will go out immediately. So pretty much as soon as it's done being edited. I wish I could give you more of a timeline on that, and I know that it's taken longer than anticipated. I originally wanted to have like, oh, I'm so glad. Viva Nova, have you were you familiar with the story before? I'm always curious if people knew about Delia Day like at the time that this happened, because there was this huge like pool of sleuths that got together and started like researching this, which I thought was super cool. But yeah, hopefully it will be out very soon, which I'm looking forward to as well. I wanted to have a print version out, but you know, money problems, right? So that didn't happen, but hopefully at some point it will. I would love to do like a special edition run of like 1,000 copies that are all numbered. I thought that would be cool. I know that's not like that uncommon, but I got the idea from, where is it? Oh, I have this book. This is totally unrelated. This is not Happy Days. Okay, so if you go to the link in the description, yes, to your question, I have a ton of articles in the draft lined up to go out. But also, if you go to also Viva Nova, I don't know if you've gone to murderpm.com, you can go to the first link in the description of this video. There are tons of articles about Delia Day that I have out. There's sections from chapters you can read. There's, if you're a subscriber, there's audio clips from my interviews. There's tons of exclusive photos and details. Like, there's a lot. So, and I have a lot more. This is not Happy Days. I have a lot more that's ready to go. I actually just finished writing another one yesterday. So yeah, I have one about my detailing my interview with her, which goes into my, the way our interviews went was there was a phone call that was like over an hour. It was almost 2 hours long. And then we emailed back and forth. So this happened from July to November of 2019. So yeah, Bernie Byrne, hi again. I'm absolutely up for suggestions. I actually have a long list of like different ideas that people have suggested to me, like different cases and serial killers and stuff. And now that I'm done with the book, and especially once it goes out, I will have so much more time to work on that. But now I'm doing a deep dive on Gary Michael Heidnik. And I mentioned this previously, but I really want to do a series on Garys, because why are there so many creepy Garys out there? What is it about the name Gary? Yeah, Gary Michael Heidnik from Ohio / Philadelphia, Gary Michael Hilton from Atlanta / Florida, and yeah, Gary Glitters. I'm not familiar. Is that actually someone's name? Why does that sound like a porn star name or something? And then there's obviously Gary Ridgway, right? Obviously. Yeah. Sorry. Um, oh, wait, I meant to look up Gary Glitters, and then I was like, why am I on my phone? And I just put it down. That is ADHD in a nutshell for you folks. Uh, are you saying Gary the name Glitters, or is there someone named Gary Glitters? Gary Glitter, oh my God, it is somebody. Paul Francis Gadd. Oh my God, it's about to be his birthday. Oh, the pop star. Oh my God, he looks like Elvis. He looks like an Elvis impersonator. Oh God. I'm always bad with that. I always do the opposite. Child pornography, child sexual abuse, series of attempted rape. Why is it always like he's dressed like this? Why? Okay, well, I gotta add Gary Glitters to the list of Garys. Oh my God. Oh, I also want to do a series on strippers because there are shocking. Oh my God, one was just murdered actually, but there are shockingly a lot of strippers. There was one in Alaska who like murdered some people or murdered one guy. Um, there are a lot of interesting stories surrounding uh, people in the sex industry, whether that's stripping or porn or whatever. Obviously, prostitutes are like a huge victim base for serial killers. Gary Ridgway constantly was picking up and killing prostitutes. Samuel Little, his whole thing was prostitutes mostly. But yeah, Sam Little, I want to do a deep dive on as well. But I'm also gonna I already did the deep dive on this because that's the Delia Day case because that's my book. But whenever you send comments, there's this little heart that's in the corner and it blocks out words. So what you're saying about the Delia Day case, my deep dive is going to be creating a documentary on this. So that's like my goal now. Shockingly, it's been very difficult to get an agent. Still working on that. Did I ever find anyone who admitted to it? What do you admitted to what? What do you mean? But to your first thing, I have reached out to people who originally followed her website. There was this long, massive thread in 2004, right after this happened. Yeah, so downloading her content, there are people online on this thread who straight up were like, I was a paying member of her website. I have all these photos saved. I actually did talk to one person who had the entire website downloaded. His name's Stephen B. Cherry. He's a writer / journalist who ran a website called Seed of the Revolution at seatdefcode.com. And that's Brooke Smith. That's how you discovered her, the Seed of the Revolution thread. That thread was amazing. Truly, like it was really like shows what the early internet was like, because if you read that, there were like no trolls. It really was super incredible. And that thread, I have a whole chapter dedicated to the aftermath, like to people figuring out what happened. But the way that came about is Ashley. Ashley was this girl she was this 21-year-old woman who got into a relationship with Travis and Susan and had seen them like the week before he was killed. And apparently she had conversations with him the night before or the day before he was killed. So there's a lot of interest in Ashley, and person who broke that story on the Seat of the Revolution website got their information because they like started figuring out who she was and went onto her live journal, and she was posting like a ton of stuff. She ended up posting the article, the only article that went out about this shooting. She posted a link to it, and that same night that massive thread started. So it's kind of ironic that she talked about how she was annoyed people were contacting her and didn't want like attention about it, but then she's the one who actually facilitated that entire thing happening, which I thought was interesting. I tried to talk to her, and she did talk to me a little bit, but sorry, I gotta move this book. She did talk to me a little bit, but she said it's something she doesn't like to discuss. Though Ashley is a very interesting character. So this goes back to Biba Nova. Am I saying that right? Biba Nova? Oh, no, it's just there. It's like if I go hover over the heart, it shows me all these little emoji reactions I can send. So it's like, YouTube should fix that, but whatever. So yes, on that site, the guy who ran the website downloaded the whole thing. There were a number of people who even posted like, this is the IP address for the Mirror site, because people were having trouble with the servers. And people went on there and literally posted their username and password so that other sleuths could go on the site. So there were definitely people that admitted to paying for it. And it was also a thing because some of the people who paid for it were pissed off because they felt like they had been conned. They felt like Delia had lied to them because like a bunch of people were like, was she even writing the website? We don't even know who this woman is. Like no one knew her real name until like a couple months after it happened. I love this book. But yeah, that thread was crazy. That's another thing I love about this story because it is a 90s Y2K era story. I love all the early internet stuff. She actually, a lot of people did wonder that she was not writing it, but when I talked to Susan, she kind of like acted very coy as if she didn't even know what the websites were. But almost everyone that I talked to, it's kind of the one thing that there was consensus on was that she wasn't writing it, and that she was talking to people on AOL though. So some people did genuinely have interactions with Susan as Delia. It was very believable. And what's interesting about that is that shit was about to, in my opinion, I think that the facade of her writing it was about to be kind of broken down, but it never happened because she killed Travis. The reason I say that is that Travis had a book that he was writing. He had like the entire outline of it. I have a chapter about that in my book as well. And this book, someone later who had talked to him posted his whole outline for it online. So that's the only reason I was able to go read about it. But I was like, he started on the Delia Day site. He had just started this owner's corner, which was just for like dominant people in the relationship, in their like respective relationships. So he would be writing on his own section of the website, and he was going to have a book coming out. And my thoughts on that were like, there is no way he's going to be able to keep up the idea that Delia was writing everything because people are going to see that he was writing everything. But I actually have an article coming out about that because she fooled a lot of people. Like pretty much everyone thought that she was writing it. Like he did a pretty good job with that. But Susan herself said that she didn't write it. And then when I talked to one of her friends who used to work for Box Top Software, he said that after this happened, she didn't know how to even log on to the website. So she really wanted to have it taken down, but she couldn't figure out how. So she had to, which I thought was interesting because like it's still up, but like I don't know if they had paid for their servers still. I think in November, they had registered their website the year before, so it must have rolled over in November. So he probably had just renewed it like the month before he was killed. So I think she had a hard time taking the website down, and she had to ask one of his friends who used to work for their software company to help her take it down. Also, in her police interview, she said she didn't know how to get onto the website, but she knew what it was. I talked to some people who were friends with her at the time, and they straight up told me she told them Travis was writing the website for her. And I think because she was mentally unstable, and she was also a mom to 2 kids. So I think if the writing was left up to her, it wouldn't have got done. Like she wouldn't have been able to keep up the consistency with the writing. Did you ever try to speak to her kids? Was that totally out of bounds? I love puns. I really do. But I always make puns like accidentally. Yeah, I did try to contact them. Her son didn't get back to me. Her daughter blocked me. And Travis's son with his previous wife, his first wife. Susan was actually his 3rd wife. Little known fact. But what was I saying? Sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, his first kid that he had with his first wife didn't get back to me, but I did interview his first wife, and she told me that I should talk to his son. So I reached out, but like he never responded. So yeah, but his first wife really hates him. His first wife said things about him that Susan never said. Like you would think that Susan was the one who killed him, so she would like have not great things to say about him, but she actually didn't, which was very surprising to me. But his first wife, Ray, straight up said, I think that he would become a serial killer if he wasn't already. And she straight up told me to look for victims in the area. And obviously he wasn't. And that was, no offense, Ray, if you're listening, I did enjoy our conversations. I do appreciate you opening up to me, but Travis was not a serial killer. Honestly, he actually seemed like a pretty decent guy. I don't think he deserved to die at all. Allison, I love that Travis's major in college was architecture. He's a great designer and glad he was a great writer too. He really was a great writer. And his architecture, actually, speaking of Ray, hold on. Something that Richard, Travis's brother, sent me. He was so great. I know this was painful for him, but I hope that he appreciates, me telling like his brother's story, because Travis has been vilified for 2 decades. And honestly, he's not the person that people have made him out to be. But this was this design that Travis made. And I don't know what it was for. Richard wasn't totally sure, but I think that this architecture design was for the house that he built on um, his family's property in Lexington. They had this cattle farm, and he built Ray and himself a house behind it. So this, I think, was one of his designs. He really loved woodworking. But yeah, he studied art history and architecture. Yeah. I find it really sad that someone would hold hatred for someone 20 years after their death. It's not like he was Hitler, Mao, or something. Hitler or Mao. He's just some dude. I agree. And Travis was a very hard worker. According to everyone who knew him, almost everyone, obviously, not Ray, but um, he was a really great dad. And yeah, he just like, maybe he was into weird, kinky sex stuff, but he wasn't being like, he wasn't making her do anything. Actually, one woman who, there were three women who knew Travis and Susan at the time, and I think they all had close relationships with him at the time that he died, and all three of them said that he was a wonderful person. They would absolutely, they miss him, and this is super painful, and they can't believe this happened, and that Susan needs mental health care. No. Okay. I don't know why it keeps doing that. But yeah, Ray, what I thought was interesting was that Ray, God, she said some crazy stuff. But I thought it was interesting how much she hated him 20 years after the fact. And when I talked to Susan, that she didn't say half the things that Ray said about him, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, Ray describes Travis as doing things to her that would land somebody in prison. All this stuff about the padlocks, etc., of her last post, do you think that was all fantasy? No, that happened. That absolutely happened. So the thing about the website is that what was happening was real, but how performative was it is up for debate. The interesting thing about that, about the padlocks, is that Travis put those on her. And then that night, he had been building something. She described it to police as a bucket. And he was building this as like a enema setup to make more content. So I guess he had been planning to, he put those locks on her. She had a lot of genital piercings, so there were already holes. So he took he took out two of the piercings that were attached with one bar, and he put a lock through it. So obviously not very comfortable, kind of horrifying to think about, but Susan didn't say she didn't want it or anything. Actually, she seemed to not be good at communicating at all. When she talked to police, the transcript of her interview, she never once says, I told him to stop and he wouldn't stop. I asked him to please stop. She never verbalizes that. She tells them a story about he puts the locks on her, and then that night she's trying to get the kids to bed, and he's asking like, hey, are they asleep yet? What's going on? Because he wanted to like get some content made for the website. And he said, I want to spend time with you. And she said, ow. O-W. That's it. She said, ow. And just stared at him. And I was like, what is that? Like, that's not communicating anything. And she said that his response was, "Hey, don't say that. Like, I'm telling you, I want to spend some time with you." And then she didn't really respond at all. That to me is very strange. And all of that came from her. She's the one that told that story to the police. So the BDSM aspects, that was real. Like it was a fantasy, but they were playing the fantasy out. So the post that you read on the website, Susan actually said that the things on the site were real, but that her feelings about it weren't accurate. Then again, Susan has issues with like changing her mind a lot and like vacillating between different states. Her first husband and her third husband, I talked to them and they told me some stories about Susan kind of changing her mind a lot. And one woman who knew Susan and Travis, not Ashley, a different woman named Maureen, called Susan a sociopath and said that she thinks that she had a lot to do with, like she had a lot of ideas for the website. I wonder how much failing memory plays into her account. That is a very good point. It's hard to say, but she did tell me one story that did not line up with the timeline I had, and I still can't explain it. She told me a story. She said that Travis shot a puppy, her puppy. She had one and he like wasn't, she said that the puppy was her buddy and that Travis didn't like that. Everyone I talked to said that Travis really loved dogs. And I don't want to diminish Susan's story at all, like, you know, but it is difficult to gauge what's true and what's not because she's not consistent. Travis, on the other hand, was very consistent. And like 90% of the people I talked to said that. They said that Susan is unstable. And they told me a bunch of stories about how unstable she is. But failing memory, I think, definitely played a role. So the story about the puppy, do you guys remember on her live journal, do you remember her puppy named Wrinkles? She said, "I just buried my dog Wrinkles. I'm going to go sleep now." I don't know if any of you remember that. But you remember that? Okay, so Susan told me that that happened in like the winter of 2002 or like January 2003. She said that happened and Travis shot the dog with like a pellet gun and it didn't kill it. And like a day or so later, he shot it with another gun. She said that he wouldn't give her her driver's license or any money to go to a vet. But then that post about Wrinkles was written like, I don't remember the exact date. I want to say August of 2003. So literally like almost a year later, that post was written. So like I asked her about it and she said, no, I'm absolutely sure it happened then. So I don't know, like, what is her perspective on why the dog was shot? I asked people who knew Travis and they were all surprised by it. And they said, Travis loved dogs. I don't understand. Like, I guess he could have done that. I don't know. That's another thing about Travis's brother and his friends that I thought was interesting. They all said that seems very out of character. I don't think he did that. I think if he shot a dog, it was to put it down because it had some issue and he was doing the dog a favor so it didn't have to suffer. But this story's so wild, I don't know. Like Travis's brother, Richard, didn't even know about the site until he got a phone call that his brother had been killed. So that's something that actually endears me to people that I interview when they're like, this is what I think, this is what I know, but I could be wrong. Like, yeah. So in regards to the failing memory, I do think that it played a role, but like how could it not? You know, memory is so, I mean, people even say like um eyewitnesses, the longer the time goes on, the less reliable they are. And people who have like their firsthand accounts or whatever, like having witnesses actually um, shouldn't be the number one reason that a person is sentenced because of how faulty memory can be. And especially if something was traumatic, like you can completely invent memories. So, but yeah, I know I talk a little about my opinion here, but in the book, like it's just the facts. And it was a long time ago. Like it's 2024 now, and this happened in 2003. So, and the thing with the dog happened even before that. So, Allison, any information on Susan's childhood? Could she have had a traumatic childhood? So, when I interviewed Susan, because I had already read a lot about her life in the 90s, 2000s, and I read her journal that came out, I saw new art. I don't, I'm sure a lot of people actually haven't seen this. Some of it's on Murder PM, but she made like a ton of new self portraits, and you can see like her whole collar tattoo and stuff. And then she deleted them all. And then she made another art site and then deleted that, like just within the time that I interviewed her. But her childhood, I have a couple videos on that on here, and I have her whole chapter of her upbringing available on Murder PM for subscribers. I do think there was a lot of trauma there. And some of the people I talked to who knew her in high school said that literally, this is a quote, she was very strange and weird. Like that's a number of people. Actually, two people actually. I talked to two people who knew her then. So that's not a lot, but they did say she didn't have a lot of friends. She didn't date a lot of people. Her childhood was interesting. Her dad traveled a lot, and her mom was like very neurotic. So Susan had a brother who died. Her brothers were much older than her, but Susan, there was like over 10-year gap between them. So she kind of grew up like an only child. But Susan's brother died in a car accident, and her mom became super paranoid whenever it would rain. And so Susan would get like made fun of for that. Like whenever it started raining, Susan's mom would literally call the school to check on her daughter. And sometimes she wanted her to come home, which I think is weird because I'm like, she'd be safer at school if it's raining. Like now you want her to get on the road to go home. Like what? Anyway, apparently her mom was super neurotic and very, like she picked at everything. If Susan put on an outfit, her mom would like, she was very controlling. Like she would try and tell her how to dress and like, just it seemed like nothing Susan did was like good enough for her mom. Kind of Susan told me that their relationship was like oil and water, is how she described it. And then Susan's dad did not have a good relationship with her mom. This is Kenneth and Margaret are Susan's parents, and so he intentionally, aside from traveling, he intentionally tried not to be home. So he would like go work at the state penitentiary, teaching Bible classes to inmates. He volunteered at their church to help out with maintenance. So he did a lot of volunteer stuff to get out of the house. Susan said they like fought a lot. So she also just seemed somewhat strange. Like Um, the thing about the rain, I don't know, maybe you guys have heard this story before, but I've talked about it before, but Susan stabbed somebody in school. They were like, "Hey, Susan, it's raining. Don't you need to go home to your mom?" And like she turned around and stabbed the guy that said that with a pencil. And I asked the guy she went to homecoming with, and he was like, "That absolutely happened." The guy she went to homecoming with also said that she made him really uncomfortable and that she didn't talk a lot, and he thought she was just very weird. Susan, though, like she's not all bad. She's just like when I talked to her, she was very sweet, but she was strange. Hi, Cement Shoes. Hope you're doing well. Um, Bibinova, has Susan or her family tried to stop you from publishing the book? No. It's weird because Susan was totally fine with it at first, and then she became like more and more uncomfortable, and she actually asked me if she could see it before it went out and like wanted to kind of edit it. And I was like, that cannot happen. That's so unethical. So we pretty much stopped talking. Like her husband, it's her fourth husband now, um, called me to kind of mediate between us because he said she was having like a ton of anxiety about it. Um, and yeah, he was like asking if they could see it before it went out. So there was some issue there, and after that I looked at Susan's Facebook, and she wrote a post saying, "If anyone sees that there's a book about me, I just want to let you know that I have nothing to do with it," which is strange because like she literally talked to me for months. Like it's weird. Um, but I mean, that's her prerogative. She can take a step back, but I'm still gonna like publish it. But no, no one has come after me about it. No one's even really reached out to me with anything negative to say about it. My guess is that she's just going to distance herself. But I do think that if I can get this documentary made and maybe get on a platform or distribution with like HBO or Netflix or something, or like Peacock, then like that stuff. I don't know how they respond because everything I'm saying is based on interviews with people and straight up facts. So I'm not like defaming her, like these are your words in the police report. Like, you know what I mean? And when I interviewed her, I didn't have the police report at the time. And once I got it, I reached out to her a couple times to try and be like, "Hey, like, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about this because I have new information," but she never got back to me. So the reason I at first was surprised by that too, but the reason is because there was no information. Like she hadn't done any interviews. I don't know why she decided to do the interview with me. I honestly don't. But the fact that she did, whenever I went to talk to people, almost everyone was like, "Have you talked to Susan? Did you talk to Susan? Is Susan part of this?" And the fact that I could say, yes, I did talk to her, it honestly made people like want to tell their story, I guess. I think that Richard, Travis's brother, like he really brought so much of this story to life because I had a lot of information on Travis just because Travis wrote so much online. Not even the Delia site. Like there are thousands of comments and posts from him on different Usenet news groups and his own websites and interviews he did with different software companies. He wrote about his childhood on some posts that I found. So I did have a lot there, but Richard really filled in that stuff for me. And I think that that's why there hasn't been a documentary about it, because people don't know anything about it. Like, it took me years to get the police report. Years. I talked to different law enforcement agencies. One of them even told me that that didn't happen. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Someone is dead. This absolutely happened. It was very weird. So, but I finally got it, and they didn't have anything else. It was like, I don't remember how many pages, like 30 pages or something. That was it. And then the autopsy was never available to me. The only reason I got that is because Richard had it. And Richard hadn't seen the police report because the police never talked to the Anton family. Like, they literally didn't care. So the Antons didn't even know what happened, which is so sad. Like, one thing about I think there hasn't been a documentary because, like, Susan, because she was never charged with a crime, technically a crime didn't happen. So, but like, obviously she killed someone. I think that the real crime was the fact that the police report and autopsy were not submitted into evidence for the grand jury. The police did not follow up with the family. They didn't interview people. I interviewed way more people than the police ever did for this. And the Anton family, actually, Richard told me that the police did so little that one of his cousins went to the house with a video camera to walk through the house. And there was so much evidence still left behind. Like, there was a bed sheet that was covered in blood that Travis's mom saved. And she was like trying to save all the info she could find on it because she essentially started her own investigation. Like, from the time Susan killed Travis to the time that the grand jury hearing ended, it was like 4 months, a little over 4. Like, how crazy is that? That's unheard of for like a homicide case, right? So, and then Susan basically didn't get help mentally. So they were like, all right, you're done, you can go. So no actual trial for Travis and his family, and no mental health care for Susan. They essentially were like, we don't want to deal with this. And they didn't care. So I think that's partly why a documentary hasn't been made, because there's no information out there. But like, now there is, so I'm hoping to be able to make it. I want to make the documentary, and then I would love to be able to, I started a script for like a mini series. And I feel like Peacock would be great for that, but I'm still like, I don't have the connections I need to be able to pitch that to somebody. I've had such a hard time getting an agent. I don't know why. I think in part, like, selling or buying and selling has been super slow since wow, why is my brain? Since the strike. My brain was like, what is that word? Ugh. All right, sorry, I've just been talking like nonstop. Brooke, I was stunned when I found your YouTube video about your book. I couldn't believe she finally decided to talk about it. I fully expected to never find out what happened. Richard seems so sweet, and I'm really happy and grateful he wanted to share his perspective. Richard really was very, very kind. I think that, I don't know if people had reached out to him before, but I think that I'm glad that he trusted me with this. And I also think that he could tell that I wasn't just like bullshitting. Like, I wasn't gonna half-ass this. And I asked him questions, and he was like, some of the questions he wasn't even, like, I did a bunch of research on his family, for example, and gave him some old photos and stuff I found. And like his dad was never really there for them. And he hadn't like fully known what exactly his dad like studied in college, you know, and that was information I had like dug up about his family history. So being able to kind of send him that and like share something with him, I think made him realize that I actually like do care about this genuinely and like I wanted to learn the truth. And I think, you know, when I reached out to Maureen, one of the 3 women that was close to Travis before he died, she told me initially was very standoffish. And she told me, I'm not interested in contributing to something where Travis is just going to be portrayed as this monster and Susan is just going to be portrayed as a victim. I'm not going to be a part of that. She said, I told her like, that's not what I'm doing. Like, I'm just trying to tell the true story. And like, she slowly talked to me. But she also said that portraying Susan and Travis's relationship as non-consensual is disingenuous at best, is what she said. So yeah, Brooke, I'm really glad that you are so happy to get the story, like the truth of it. I worked so hard trying to like figure out what happened. So I'm really proud of that. And I also, it's so nice to like be able to talk to people who have been invested in this story. And like, there are some people who have commented on some of the videos and we're like, every now and then I go research the story to see if there's any new information. So I'm really glad that I can answer people's questions because I just became so obsessed with this. I knew there was something wrong with it. And yeah, Travis never struck me as being the person that he has been painted as. And I don't think he was a bad person. I don't think that he deserved any of this. Richard really, I think I responded to that Richard was very sweet. Yeah, he was nice. Very level-headed too, like straight shooter, easy to communicate with. And he sent me a ton of photos and obviously those pictures and stuff. Like here, I don't see. Like, I showed some of this the other day. Actually, I didn't show these, but I thought this was interesting. These little note cards, like rings of desire, like Travis's handwriting. This tattoo shop, some motel, like just little things like that, getting to see his handwriting. Just little things like this too, like a little valet parking thing for one of their trips to New Orleans. There's obviously photos, like baby photo of Travis. He was a super smart kid. Like Travis, his brother, his mom, and their grandmother all graduated a year early from high school. They're all super smart. Netflix better than Peacock? I don't know. I'm really not sure. I think that they're both great and they're both popular. And honestly, I would be happy to get a deal with either of them. I thought this was cool. I think this isn't labeled or anything. I do this weird thing, like growing up, my dad took so many photos of my family. Like I have like an archive of my upbringing, which is cool and apparently rare. I was surprised to learn that, but um, yeah, I always, when I look at photos, I like go to the back to see if there's notes because my mom would always write, you know, the date and like where this was and everything, which is amazing. But like other people don't do that. So I'm like, but I think this is Susan. It was kind of hard to tell. I'm pretty sure that's Susan smoking a cigarette. I think it's a photo that Travis took. But yeah, like just having all this stuff and like this that like Richard sent me, it was like, wow. There's also some photos of the house after the murder, or sorry, the shooting. It was not a murder. That didn't happen. I can't say that because she was never charged with anything. And the M word is a legal term. Yeah, and she was not charged. I have to be so careful. Like that word doesn't exist anywhere in the book. Yeah, oh my God. Here's another thing. These flyers, I actually thought I should maybe, is this weird to do like a giveaway? Because I have all these copies of these flyers of Susan's from the time. They're all like all these flyers she printed out. I was like, that would be an interesting giveaway to do. But this like flyer for her work. And then like her whole ass resume. So he really like brought a lot of this to life, especially Travis. Like just having all these photos of Travis and like his artwork too was incredible because like we've all seen Susan's artwork, but like I had never seen Travis's artwork anywhere. Like until now, until I got these photos. So it's like really incredible to be able to like see some of his work, like a painting that he did. This these I think were, he lived in Arizona for a really short period of time and was kind of broke. He went to Arizona while he was trying to get divorced from Ray because I need to remember why that was. Sorry, I like finished writing this months ago and it was 7 years of research and adding things. So like, obviously I read through the whole thing, but like there are still little details I have to remind myself of. So I am sorry. But he went to Arizona because I think it was something about some divorce lawyer or yeah, he had to go. Actually, it might have been because the guy who Ray ended up cheating with had something to do in Arizona. Anyway, he lived there for a short period of time and was kind of broke and like painted these for his family as like gifts for Christmas because he couldn't afford to get anyone anything. But yeah, there are other art photos. This one's my favorite, actually. These are, if you subscribe to Murder Pop, the photos are on there. It's like a bad reflection in here, so it's not great. But yeah, there's just so much other stuff. There's like a letter that like a love letter he wrote Susan. There's photos of their room where there's like blood all over the ceiling and the wall. And like there's blood-stained bed. Yeah. Yeah. So I know that it was all difficult for Richard, but I do hope that I do hope that it feels good to have like the true story out there, you know? And I also, like, part of me feels bad for Susan too, because, like, I don't know, maybe I don't really feel bad for her. I think her life's just sad. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so sorry. I've just been talking. I haven't, like, looked at these. James, really weird. I was already subbed to this channel, but I had to sub again. Yeah, that is weird. I don't know. Honestly, I don't. Crazy that there is no documentary about this case. A lot of crazy stuff. I look forward to watching it. Thank you. Ernest Green. Oh, hi. What's up? Rings of Desire was the shop owned by her body piercer. Yes. Elaine Angel. I actually wrote a whole article about her as well. Elaine is so sweet. I talked to her about her experience piercing Susan, and she told me some interesting things. But Elaine wrote the Piercing Bible, which, if you get a copy, it is so cool. Like, there's all of these anatomical drawings with, like, piercings and where they go, and she goes in depth about the anatomy and the proper way to pierce. And, like, I'm a dork, so, like, I just love learning things in general, but it's a really good book, and Elaine is so sweet. Very sad about Rings of Desire because it closed after Hurricane Katrina and Elaine left. But it was, like, renowned. Like, it was very well known. But I just loved seeing this little piece of paper with, like, Travis's handwriting. Yeah, they went to Rings of Desire a lot. They had linked it to their website. So I still sometimes, even though, like, I know what happened now, sometimes I still feel like there's even more to learn. Like, oh my God, you guys, I was told that Susan in 1992 gave an interview to a local news station. There are so many side stories. Like, I gotta say, this really feels like Tiger King level drama. This whole story is nuts. Like, there were so many funny, hilarious, bizarre side stories about this. But Susan, I don't know if I should give all of this away, but something happened and it led a local news station to interview Susan. And I've been trying to get in contact with them, and I just haven't heard back. I called and sent an email and, like, Facebook message and whatever. But I'm trying to figure out where it is, because, like, if they have a tape of it in their archives, that we can, like, watch an interview Susan gave in, like, the early 90s. Oh my God, I want to see it so bad. Pipe. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Brooke. It's so neat to see Travis's personal items. It really helps to humanize him, since he's become almost this legendary character in this insane story. Yes, like, he's a whole person, and he's super smart, very funny, likable. The worst thing, aside from what Ray said, which essentially she describes him as, like, Ted Bundy, which is not accurate. No one else said anything like that. Oh, she was smoking a pipe? Oh, it looked like a cigarette. I think it was just a cigarette. But he honestly seems like a really good guy. And he's so funny. Like, this sounds strange because he's, like, the victim. I think that they both were. I think they were, like, almost victims of each other. Like, they almost got divorced twice. Susan left twice. She came back twice. And, like, it's complicated. I think that her killing him had nothing to do. I know it had nothing to do with BDSM. Like, she probably, I know that she was, like, mentally unstable, but I think that it had to do with their kids because they were talking about divorce. And I think that that is why that happened. Yeah, that's totally a cigarette. Yeah. Sorry, I'm so like challenged with the direction of here. It's like, okay, sorry. Um, yeah, it really like Travis is not the person that he's been made out to be. And that's something that was really important in the book. And also Susan is not the person she's been made out to be either. Like they are both different. Their their actual person is not the as you said, like the legendary characters. Like, yeah. Susan, something that Richard said, because he spent a lot of time with Susan, obviously, like she was part of the business. Yeah, Travis was a victim. He was killed in his sleep. Like he was shot 3 times in his sleep. Susan, there were the thing that's weird is like if the story about him locking her in a basement or in a box or sticking skewers in her, stuff like that, like, and I know that some of that stuff existed on the website in the context of selling content and whatnot, but it's not like he was, the rest of the story about subjugating her is not accurate. It's not accurate in the sense that she was forced. Susan did play a part in it. She knew about the website. She, like, one quote that Richard said after all the time he spent with her was, Susan's not some innocent little princess. And from talking to one woman I talked to who knew them, Maureen said, Susan's a sociopath. I don't know how true that is. I think she has borderline personality disorder just based on my own thing. But Susan's first husband and her third husband tell stories about her behavior being like incredibly confusing. One of them told a story about how she her and Travis had an affair and he walked in on it. And that is how their divorce came about. And that's how she moved in with Travis. When I asked Susan about the divorce, Susan said, oh, you know, my mom just really didn't like that I changed my last name. And she came and picked me up one day and I didn't even know what was going on. And she drove me to a lawyer's office and she forced me to sign papers to get a divorce. Those are wildly different stories. Wildly different stories. You know what I mean? So it makes me like, I feel distrustful of Susan, but I also do not want to diminish her own suffering because none of the facts line up with Travis being this like abuser who forced Susan to do anything. However, there could have been elements of that that could absolutely be in play, but nothing that I've heard from people except Ray line up with that. Like, I think that she does have a victim complex, but I also think that she was a victim. I think she was more a victim of her mother, who was so controlling. And I think that also people with personality disorders become victims of themselves. And that's not to say like, sorry, when does the book come out? Okay, so the book is with an editor, and whenever he finishes it and sends it back to me, it'll be out. So very soon, I know he's super busy, but very soon it will be out. And yeah, there in the link below, if you go to the first link, there's an archive of tons of articles. If you subscribe to my platform, murderpm.com, there's audio from my interviews. There are exclusive photos. There are chapters from the book. Like, there's a ton of content on there. And I also have a ton of articles that I'm about to start putting out that's new information on the case that I haven't put out yet. I'm glad that you're excited about it. James, I thought it was just BDSM 50 Shades they had going. Okay, so a lot of people think that, and to be honest, the BDSM aspect isn't really that big of an aspect. Like, when she killed him, it had nothing to do with BDSM. I mean, aside from, obviously their relationship was surrounding that. And I think that she like lost interest in it, but she wasn't communicating to him. And I think that they had a difficult relationship and were looking at getting divorced. Like, one of the women that I talked to told me that Travis was, thank you, James, that Travis actually was thinking of leaving Susan, which like blew my mind. I'd never heard that before. So their relationship wasn't great. But I do have, like, one thing that confused me was that if, say, you are abusing someone or controlling them or keeping them locked away, Travis and Susan had 10 guns in their house, plus the 12-gauge Mossberg that they just bought. So why would you leave someone that you're trying to subjugate and like that who you're abusing, leave them to freely walk around the house while you go to sleep with like 10 guns in the house? You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that someone would do. He would have to be out of his mind nuts. And he just was not. From everyone I talked to, the worst thing they said was that he was arrogant. He was very intelligent and he could be arrogant. And he was also very determined in his business. He was very determined to be successful before Box Top Software and before the porn site, because he really did view it as a business. Like, his Box Top at its height was making 30 grand a month, and the Delia site at its height like started making 15 grand a month. So yeah, I think that the main thing was that Travis got complete custody of his first son from his first marriage, which in the state of Mississippi, like, that says a lot about a person for a man to get 100% custody. That says a lot about him. And Susan's third husband told me that that Travis told Susan, if you leave me, I'm going to get custody of the kids. And Susan came back twice. And I really think that, this had to do with their children. I don't think that it had to do with BDSM. Obviously that played a role, but like, that wasn't the reason. It is, right? James, like, that is dumb. Like, why would you do that? Which tells me that that wasn't the case. Travis loved guns. He even taught Susan how to shoot because they were having an issue with one of their neighbors and they had to call the police on their neighbors. And he was worried about Susan if she was ever at the house alone because he left her at the house alone. Why would you leave someone at the house alone if you were afraid they were going to run away? Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, and then the police didn't do anything. So my thing is, Susan was a victim also of the state because she needed mental health care and didn't get any. And then Travis deserved a trial because I think that everyone, if someone is killed, I think there should be a trial to figure out how lawful or unlawful it was. But yeah, essentially for the grand jury, they printed out a few photos. Actually, one of the things Richard sent me was his mom had like basically started her own investigation because the police did nothing. And like his mom had like printed out all of these like images from their site. Not the best ink job. You can see the ink is like, bleh. But yeah, this is crazy to think about the date on this. So she printed this December 21st, 2004. So she printed this over a year after her son was killed. Like his mom was basically investigating this herself. All of this is every single live journal post. And his mom printed this February 23rd, 2004. So that is like about 3 months after her son was killed. So she was really trying to figure out like what the hell happened because the police weren't talking to them. So this story also really has to do with, I think, French Camp, the town, because French Camp Academy, like Morgan Freeman has donated to that academy. It's like well known as being a boarding school. So they own the school, obviously. They basically own the town. They own this planetarium and observatory facility that is in French Camp. They own the historic village. Like, they essentially run this town. And I think that they also didn't want to bring attention to it because people wouldn't send their kids to the boarding school. Like, they would lose some of their funding or whatever. So that played a role. The police not doing anything, that all played a role in regards to French Camp being where it happened. I think that if this happened somewhere else, it very well could have been a different deal altogether. But it was a small town in Mississippi, and like they were able to just sweep it under the rug. But yeah, I really do feel so bad for Travis's mom because she just died a couple years ago. I think 2018, if I recall. So that was a year after I started researching this. But I'm sorry, I need to catch up on these. Once you're done with this, you should look into Christopher Aaron Morris case, also obscure with no coverage. Usually still unfortunate. So the interesting thing, James, the interesting thing about that is that if you just look at comments on like Reddit and other people's YouTube videos, they're all like, Travis was horrible, blah, blah, blah. I don't blame her, blah, blah, blah. But if you go back on the Internet Archives and you read the original thread about this case that people were writing like that people were writing like 3 months after, you will find that people were not saying that. They were really trying to do an investigation. There were a number of people that were like, I actually feel like this is super sketchy and there's something wrong about this. And I think that, is it just me, or like there should have been a trial, right? Like this seems unjust. Like that, a lot of people were saying that back then. And that's all been like lost with time. But yeah, it's a small novel. It absolutely is. Like their whole website that's just her live journal. And Travis had a live journal. The women that they were seeing, that women who they invited into their relationship and also onto their website, had their own journals with a ton of stuff. The website had thousands of pages. Ernest, do you think that perceptions about BDSM played a role in why the case was treated by law enforcement and the courts? 100%. I think that people view people who are into BDSM as being sick and like, I guess undesirable, or as basically being perverted. And I think that it definitely played a role in like how uncomfortable, like a small town in Mississippi. I don't know who was on the jury, but I'm guessing that everyone was white. That's just, I'm guessing. And I don't know the age group, but a small town in Mississippi, I'm going to go ahead and say that it was like maybe all 12 people are Christian. And I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying that you could, again, this is speculation because I don't know who was on the jury or not. But say if you get like white Southern Baptist types and all you do, no police report, no autopsy report, but you print out photos from a BDSM website and show it to them, they are 100% going to be like disgusted and be like, yeah, just don't charge her with anything. There's not going to be more thought to it. I think that BDSM is much more accepted now. One thing that I think is interesting about BDSM is that even if you're not into it, a lot of people like the aesthetic. So like O-ring collar, like I like the aesthetic, you know, like it's very rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like you can go on any website now and buy an O-ring collar because it's cute, you know, like people, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it is a lot more mainstream now, for sure. Yeah. So I definitely think that people's perceptions of BDSM are that it is wrong, not wrong, but like twisted, you know, or it's like a paraphilia. You have to be like mentally ill to be into it, which is not true, obviously. But I do think that like sometimes people with personality disorders might be into more extreme types of sex because they're getting something emotionally from it being extreme, or inflicting pain, or having pain inflicted on you. Like they're getting something emotionally from it. Though I did talk to Gloria Bram, who have an article that I'm going to have come out about her as well. I did an interview with her and I didn't include it in the book because I decided not to get into psychology. I just wanted to tell the story, and then I'm going to publish the interview I did with her as an article. But she's a sexologist, a published author. She actually said that she doesn't think that she doesn't think that people with personality disorders are more likely to be into BDSM than not. So I did think that was interesting because I always just assumed that, you know, people with personality disorders tend to like the extremes, and BDSM is on a spectrum of sexual interests, can be extreme. It can also be very mild. So, but yeah, that was definitely control and dominance. I think that, I don't know, I think a lot of people don't get it. And there have been a lot of cases though that do include like BDSM in them. Actually, the way that I started here, if you guys have any other questions about Delia, please feel free to ask. But I'm going to explain something weird. Actually, when I first started this, the Delia story, because there wasn't a lot of info about it, the Delia story was a short story that I wrote a chapter on, and I wanted it to be in a huge like collection, like a book specifically about stories that had to do with BDSM or the porn industry or something like that. And so I had a number of different cases that dealt with this type of theme. And I called it Your Brain on Sadomasochism. And I was just looking for it. I need to check my hard drive there because I was looking for it and I could not find it. And I was like, no, because I started this like 7 years ago and it was a ton of different cases. But what I quickly realized was that the Delia Day story doesn't belong in that kind of book because BDSM was their interest, it was their business, but the actual shooting, the killing itself, wasn't related to that. Oh my God, BTK. I'm sorry. Those pictures of him, I cannot, like, those pictures of him dressed up. Did, have any of you seen The Clove Hitch Killer? That movie, very underrated. It was like influenced by BTK. You know, I've actually been thinking, did you like it? Did you like the movie? BTK's still alive, and I don't really have an interest in, like, I would interview serial killers, but I've only ever tried to write to one serial killer just to see what would happen. And his response was so weird. Like he was trying to like play a game or something. Yes, okay, the scene. Yes, that scene where he it shows like a bird's eye view and he's laying in bed and the scene with the photos where he has like a tantrum, like a meltdown. That was my favorite scene in the movie because I thought this whole thing, it's like a child's tantrum. And I think ultimately personality disorders have to do with a lack of self, poor emotional regulation, a lack of empathy, and all of those are traits that children have because they haven't developed them yet. And having like a meltdown like that, yeah. I haven't seen the movie for a couple of years, so I actually don't remember the weird religious friend. Oh my God, I bet. That's so, that BTK used to hit himself when he was frustrated. Didn't, I'm, wait, I'm remembering this right. You know, I'm like obsessed with Israel Keys, right? But BTK made a comment about Israel Keys and he called him a pussy because he like, wait, I think I'm remembering that the opposite way. Israel Keys made fun of BTK because BTK said he was sorry or something. Ugh, I don't remember. Did you like it? Yes. Okay. So I like totally got that backwards. I think it's because I was like, oh, that's hilarious. BTK called Israel Keys a pussy, but it was the opposite. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Israel Keys, you know, actually, that's partly the same reason I was interested in the Delia story is the same reason that I'm so interested in Israel Keys. There is not information out there. Like there is now about the Delia story, but it took like years of digging. And that's something with Keys, like no one knew who he was until after he was dead because he made that deal with the FBI to not talk about him publicly if like he will give them information if they do not talk about him to the news. Don't release my name is basically what he said. Yes, oh my God, this is not Happy Days. BTK is also the acronym for my book, Bound to Kill. And I wanted to do a hashtag BTK. It was not intentional, it's a total coincidence, but it kills me. I wanted to do like, oh, hashtag BTK. And I was like, wait, shit, I can't do that because everyone's going to think it's, you know, bind, torture, kill. Has anyone ever written to a serial killer? I'm interested. They speculate he's the Batin Roca. Oh, right. I thought it was Roca Baton. Is it Baton Roca? I don't know. But the serial killer at the mall in Florida, the police sketch it looks like him. I would believe it. There's not a lot of evidence, but I believe it. Yeah, it's Israel Keys has. I think he's been to like every single state, and it's so hard to know. Like it's hard to remember the exact locations that he's been to. I actually thought about doing a video about Keys. I know I'm getting somewhat off topic, but about what Keys had in those Home Depot buckets, because I have a Home Depot bucket, and every time I look at it, I'm just like, like I thought that could be an interesting video, but I don't know. Some people think I'm tasteless, but I don't care. I don't think I am. I think that I make fun of serial killers, and for some reason people think that I'm making fun of their victims, but I'm not, and that is so weird to me. Because like serial killers are fair game. You can make fun of them as much as you want. They're like assholes. You should print a doll mask for the cover. Oh my God. James, have you actually seen the cover? There's some articles on Murder Pop about it. I had a video about it on my YouTube, but I made it private because I changed the way I was selling it. So I need to make another video about it. But yeah, if you subscribe to Murder PM, you get the book with your subscription. So if you're not subscribed, go do that. There's monthly, there's annual, and there's a 15% off if you go to murderpm.com/ask. ASK. You can get 15% off on a subscription. There's an article on there with the book cover and all the book art and like what our inspiration for coming up with it was. It was the movie Videodrome. You know how like the lips and the mouth are in the TV, something. Who is that? Oh wait, I don't know who that is. Alyssa, what? I'm gonna look this up. So oh, I think I do know who you're talking about. There are so many people that it's like, yeah. I don't know the details of this one, but I've seen it. Ugh, I remember this girl with her emo. Yes, she's so emo. Look at this shit. Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, fair enough. You can't help what you're attracted to or who. Martin Shkreli. Did you really almost write to him? That's interesting. This is not Happy Days. Didn't he have, he was in prison for fraud or something? Like he worked for some big like investment banking or like venture capitalist company or something like that. I don't know. But it was fraud, right? Anyway, any more questions? It's been an hour, 44 minutes. Are there any more questions about Delia or anything else you want to ask me? I feel like there are a million things I could say about the Delia story. There's so many like offshoots. Yeah. I don't want to give this away, but it's one of the weirdest like elements of this. I shouldn't. I won't. But yeah. The Delia Day story really is crazy. The more I learned about it, the more I likened it to Tiger King. They're so different, but the level of crazy reminds me of Tiger King. Do you think we'll ever know Susan's motives? Susan told police, or she told the coroner who showed, or the medical examiner who showed up on site, that she had been abused and she was tired of it. Physically and sexually, or sexually and emotionally abused and was tired of it, is all she said. And she never elaborates really. She never really explains to police what he was doing. She actually tells, when they ask for specifics, she said, I don't really know. I don't really remember. She talked a little. She said he was into something. It was like fire or something. And that's not the exact quote, but she was like, what's that word? He was into something. It was like fire. And I was like, I think she means the word sadomasochism, but I think she doesn't want to say it because she doesn't want to seem too familiar with the idea of it, even though I have evidence that she knew about the website. And she knew that he was right. He was her ghostwriter, and she was okay with that for a long time. The children, her kids were absolutely, I think, the motive, because Susan could have left. She literally, she's definitely playing ignorant. When I asked her about the websites, she said they had an initial porn site. It was My Illustrated Life as a Sex Slave, but it was at justif.com. And then their second site was My Illustrated Life as a Sex Slave at deliaday.com. When I asked her about it, she said, I don't really know what that was functioning as. Yeah, I don't really know what that was functioning as. That's not obviously the exact quote. There were a lot more ums involved. And I'm not like trying to be shitty. It was just not clear communication to me. But how do you not know? Like, I know you know. People have told me that they talked to you and you told them that you knew. Like, there's no way you didn't know. You were with this guy for 10 years and you were like a fetish model, you know? Someone also told me that some of the ideas for the website came from Susan. So I thought that was interesting. And then she, when I asked her about the Delia site, she said, oh, was that like, that was like the sex slave journal thingy that he made? I was like, come on, dude, like, you know what this is, like, but I didn't want to push it, so I just let her kind of bring it up, you know. But I think that the motivation was her kids, which I think is ironic because this didn't do anything good for her children. Actually, one story that's really sad is I found an old blog that her daughter started writing when she was a teenager about how they became homeless at one point. And daughter wrote about being raped. Like, they lived out of a van. Susan, her 2 kids, and some of their dogs. They had like a couple pets and they lived out of a van. So, I mean, I think it's not, I mean, she was like, OnlyFans didn't exist, but Delia was like, there were a couple people like her, but her site was different because it wasn't presented as like this glamorous, like pornography, whatever. Like, it was very raw and real. And they talked a lot about just everyday life. their pets, going to the vet, cooking food, like her mental issues, something like that. But how is it not more famous? I mean, I think it's because people haven't had answers. Like, I think now that the story, once the book comes out, and like, now that there are answers for what happened, if I can get the documentary made, I think it probably will be famous. But Susan actually told me that growing up, that she always wanted to be famous. She said, I always thought I would be a famous artist. And when I talked to her, obviously, well, I talked to her in 2019, so she was in her 50s. And she said, I've now come to terms with the fact that that didn't happen for me. Again, I'm remembering the quotes, but like, that's not verbatim. I'm just telling you what I remember of them. And I thought that was interesting because I'm like, I mean, you kind of are famous, just not for the reasons you wanted to be famous, you know? Ask her again in 2 years if she'll talk to me. I'd love to do an in-person interview with her. She did send me a video of herself talking, so there's that. But if she'll ever talk to me again, I will absolutely. She lives in Texas now. She finally left Mississippi. But yeah, honestly, I'm not trying to make her seem like a bad person. I'm literally just stating the facts, things she has said, and things other people have said about her. So the way that she's presented is authentic, and it's not always flattering. In fact, I actually, oh my God, I tried not to laugh, but I asked one of her husbands, like, there's something about her. Her first and her third husband both said they still love her, even though they said that she didn't treat them well and that she left them like that. Like, she had been with them for a few years. She did this to both of them. They said they were both shocked and that she left them out of the blue. Like, they weren't expecting it. So I thought that was weird. Do I have a full copy of the piece Susan's friend Rhonda wrote about her? I think I remember seeing quotes on Murder PM, but I can't find the full post anywhere, and I've never read. Yes, I do have it. I have the whole letter, and I also texted Rhonda to double check because Susan had two friends at the time. She really didn't have a lot of friends, but she had a friend named Sylvia who was her roommate in college, and then Rhonda. Those were her two friends. Oh my God. But yeah, I have it. I will put the whole thing out for people to read. But I did text Rhonda, and she said, I don't want to do an interview because when I published that letter, Susan became furious with me, and we had a falling out. And she said that they like slowly became friends again. And so she didn't want to do an interview, but I asked her, I was like, can you just confirm if you wrote this or not? And she was like, yes, I'm the one who wrote it. So I at least got that. I saved like screen captures of our texts so I can like put those on there. I think it's somewhere in an article already. There are like tons of articles saved as drafts. And I finalized 4 of them in the last couple days, and I'm going to go through the rest, but I will publish the whole thing. Actually, there are like large sections of it in the book, but I'll publish the whole thing as well. Is she still trying to get a preview of your book? She's not. I mean, I haven't talked to her since November. I think it was like November 11th of 2019. I've tried to reach out to her a couple times. She said she wanted to read it, but she was like, wanted to edit it. And I was like, that's so unethical. There's no way, there's no chance I'm going to let you edit this book. I was like, but you can, I didn't say this to her, but I thought, why don't you write your own book? I thought that would be super interesting. See, like, if she wrote her own biography and then I have, it was kind of supposed to be like a a biography, but then the more I interviewed people and the more information I got, the more I realized that, I mean, I think she was lying. She definitely wasn't telling the truth. Allison, great chat. Thanks for all you've shared. Very interesting and informative. Love hearing more insights and look forward to reading BTK. Thanks so much for answering all these questions. Good night. Thank you so much. Yeah, you be safe too. Thank you for showing up and saying hi and asking questions and stuff. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have found this interesting. Like, oh, I'm just saying goodnight to Allison because she said goodnight. I'm not leaving yet. I probably will soon because it's almost been 2 hours. But I mean, if there's anything else you want to know about this, I'm happy to talk about it. I actually have a oh, thank you so much, Brooke. That means a lot to me. I really wanted to get the story right, and like I almost feel like the more I learned about it, the more I felt an obligation to tell this story. Like, especially for Travis. And I know some people probably have this idea like, oh, you're taking his side, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, this story, it is crazy. It's a crazy story. And like, it is wild that it happened 2 decades ago. And like, it's just now coming out about what actually happened. And it is like the opposite of what people have like believed it to be. There were a lot of people early on who suspected that there was something very wrong with it. But yeah. Thank you, Ernest. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you want me to bring this up or not. I'll leave it. I have a bad true crime addiction. So do I. I don't know why, but I do. Oh, good. I'm glad my algorithm's working because I felt like, I know I took like a hiatus off from my channel. But yes, okay, Ernest, that's what I was gonna say because Ernest wrote an article about this. He was like one of the very few people who wrote about this. And you made this amazing post as well on the Seed of the Revolution, which was fascinating. I love that you wrote for Hustler's Taboo, an article about Delia, and then also like your background doing like crime reporting. Yes. Your question, James. Yeah, I'm glad that you I'm glad that you said hi. Number. I don't know. But this book is full of like fascinating people. Ernest, there's Elaine, there's a number of people. Like, I don't even know where to begin with this because Buck Angel is mentioned. There's some like filmmakers that Travis tried to contact to get promotion for Susan. He went to all of those conventions in San Francisco that were run by Steve Jobs. Honestly, James, there's not a lot out there except for Murder PM. And I know that's self-promoting, but it's actually true. um, James, I don't know if you watched this, but I have a whole mini series on my channel about this story. But yeah, there have been a few videos that have come out. The two most popular were Scare Theater and I'm sorry, I'm getting ADHD. It was Scare Theater, Eleanor Neal. I was like, Elaine? My brain was like, Elaine Orlin. And I'm like, that is not a name. There is no one. Eleanor Neal has a video. And I like her channel. And this is not a slight, but like that video was like 90% bullshit. And I'm not blaming her because she just went off of like what's on the internet, but it's not accurate. I'm glad, James. I need to get like 1,000 more paying subscribers and then I can do this full time and make the documentary without like outside funding. So if I can make it myself or get a production deal for it and then make it myself, then it'd be really cool. Actually, I reached out to Eleanor Neal. I reached out to her and I got an email from her like assistant or her agent, and they were like, I reached out and was like, hey, do you want to do like an interview or something? And we can talk about the story and like all the updated info. And her assistant said no. I was like, whatever. I mean, that's fine. It's her channel. She isn't known for doing interviews on her channel, so it would probably be like a first, and it doesn't really fit the whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I put all kinds of things on my channel probably, but. Oh, another thing, tattoos. I have this like little book and I have like so much info about the case that I like wrote in it. And I like, sometimes when I didn't, Brooke, I know, right? I actually, like, I liked her channel and then I was like, why wouldn't you want to like update your information? I don't get it. I'm just like weird. I'm just like, I like facts and I want to make factually accurate content. And if I'm wrong, I really want to know. Like, please, if you can prove me wrong, do it. Like, but sometimes if I was stuck researching or whatever, I would just kind of doodle. And I like doodled Susan's tattoos one day. I think I just got like stoned and like sat there and like drew her tattoos while watching like The Sopranos or something. But yeah. Oh, all the small disturbing details. Actually, there's this crazy audio clip of Ray, and I don't know how true this is, but she says it happened. She said Travis was building like torture devices and stuff and would hide them in an aquarium, like behind an aquarium that had like a false back to it. And I was like, interesting. But she also said that he tried to kill her, so I don't know. Ray is interesting because I've caught her in one live, and there is another thing where she said that she had MS and was in a wheelchair. And there is, Ray, if you're listening, I am sorry, but this was sketchy to me. If you have multiple sclerosis and you are in a wheelchair, which she said she was in this wheelchair for like years, there is no cure. Like, you're not going to start walking again. That doesn't happen. But Ray is not in a wheelchair anymore. I find that very interesting. Her husband, the guy that she married, who she cheated on Travis with, had MS and was in a wheelchair. And after his diagnosis, she was diagnosed and they were both in wheelchairs. There was like this newspaper article done about them, like this couple with MS who was in school and like trying to, and had kids and whatever. And then after he died, she was like miraculously healed. And now she's walking. She's not in a wheelchair. So I thought that was weird. It did teach me a bit about Ray. I also found out that she won if she didn't actually have MS. So that was not accurate. And again, my only evidence of that is that she is now walking, which when you have MS, there isn't a cure. So that was sketchy to me. But she won Miss Wheelchair Mississippi in like 2001 or something. And I still can't find a video of it. I'm still looking for a video. And I've like tried to contact them and stuff, and they didn't know what I was talking about. But I found an old pamphlet and flyer. She literally won Miss Wheelchair Mississippi. And now she's not in a wheelchair anymore. I was like, that's an interesting aspect of this story. Yeah. It didn't seem that way. It was like a nice motorized one, though. It wasn't like a crappy wheelchair. It was like a motorized one, which I don't know how that happened. It was probably donated, but I think that if people fake illnesses or not, and again, I cannot prove it, so I'm not like defaming anyone. I'm just saying this is my opinion. I personally think that it's sketchy, just my opinion. But no, I don't know, maybe. The photo of it is interesting because you see her husband's legs and they look like kind of withered, and you know how like people with MS or people who like have muscle deterioration, like their legs kind of go together, right? Their knees touch. So her husband's legs looked that way in a wheelchair. And then Ray's legs did not. They still looked built and they were like she was keeping them up. So I thought that was interesting, but odd. Actually, Travis worked with the guy that she married. And he is the one who introduced him to Ray. It's impossible to know who is to believe in all this. Ray's side of the story is especially difficult to rule on for me. I feel that way too, because Ray's family life was very broken. So I always feel like Ray is a victim, and I don't want to take away from that. But it's all like very gray. It's a gray area because, she's a victim of her parents. And maybe Travis, he was very young. So like, maybe he wasn't the best boyfriend / husband. And maybe he learned a bit and then was like nicer to people after. Or maybe she just, yes, exactly, James. That's what I'm saying. Like, and I also think if you have reality distortions or like personality disorders, the way that you conceive of things is going to be, you're going to be more sensitive to perceived insults than actual insults. So just the perception of things happening is, well, yeah, it could all be possible. Like, did Travis really try to kill her? She says he did. He in turn said that she was nuts. So like he wrote a post about her. So it's difficult to know. But I do think it's interesting that she isn't in a wheelchair anymore. I don't know this for sure, but I bet you if you look at like the history of Miss Wheelchair, like the beauty pageant or whatever, there are not going to be any who are now walking. Again, I haven't looked at this, I haven't done research on it, but I find it to be so strange that she's not in a wheelchair anymore. Like, you do not heal from MS. It is, you get diagnosed with it and it kills you. She lies about having MS. Very low, disgusting thing to lie about. Lots of people suffer from MS. My mom has early stages. I would say she's extremely incredible. I also don't think she's credible, but I hate to say that because I do and I don't. I believe a lot of the things that she said, but I also I remain skeptical about everything everyone tells me. I remain skeptical. And again, in the book, I don't give my opinion at all. So I just want to make it clear, like, I am talking candidly about it now, but like, I'm not presenting it that way. In the book, it is what it is. So it's, for you to decide, really. Oh, another thing I was told was that Susan perjured herself in court. There was a custody hearing because, and again, there's so much in the book. Sometimes I feel like, oh, I'm giving too much away, but I don't think I am, because there's so much in there. So many things happened. But I thought that was interesting, and it showed that Susan's real motivation was her children. It was absolutely her kids, because she lied so she could get custody of them. And she actually caused herself, it kind of backfired on her, and it caused her some issues. And eventually it worked itself out, but yeah. I also think that the way that Susan perjured herself in court, because it kind of backfired, I was surprised that no one was like, huh, that's interesting, and like looked into it further. I really think that, I don't know, her appearance and everything, like now she really wears like all, I bet you in court she was like in a turtleneck or a scarf. They were definitely lazy. That's the thing, like there's a lot of truth in this story, but then there's a lot of like drama. He said, she said, he's a serial killer, she's crazy, she's a sociopath, he tried to kill him. Like, do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of facts in this, and then there's a lot of like crazy shit. Like one of these side stories, like Susan, I can't. Oh my God, there's so many crazy. I'm looking for a photo to show you. Susan like is constantly trying to hide her tattoo. Oh my God, there's like 500 photos of my dog. Yeah, here. This is from 2019, 2020 of Susan, shortly after she deleted her Facebook. But she is constantly trying to cover that tattoo. A neon green. She was very into neon. She wore a lot of neon wigs, actually. I want to find a photo for you of, I hate to be on my phone during this. Oh, I don't know if you guys have really seen photos of Ashley. This was not that great, but this was Ashley. So the girl that they were dating at the time. And oh, here's one of Susan. more updated one of Susan with her collar tattoo. This one is, I think, 2016. Yeah, she came back. Susan and Travis were dating her. Yes. So I think they started trying to branch out on the Delia Day website to bring other women in. And I think that this was a good idea for a couple of reasons, because all of that, how old is Susan? Susan is now, I want to say 56. Like, double check my math for you. She actually might be older than that. She might, I don't know. What is it, 2024 minus 19, whoa, 67. She's 57 years old. Yeah, and also, ironically, Susan actually has MS. So when I talked to her, she said she used to draw a lot. She said she started struggling with drawing, and even like holding a coffee cup. She said like walking down the, honestly, it could be 2022. I'm like, where has the time gone? It's just like gone. It's wild. The older I get, like the quicker time goes. It's really crazy. But yeah, this whole story is just wild. Oh, here's a picture of, no one has seen this yet. So this is a treat for you guys. This is on the outside of their house after Travis was killed. And it's just a picture of his motorcycle. Sorry, I got like stuff on my phone. You ever put like lotion on and then you pick up your phone and you're like, crap. But yeah, he had a motorcycle. Sorry, I hate being on my phone, but I also want to like show you guys pictures and stuff. I find it interesting that she seems to be okay with her tattoos and showing them. She did like a whole new yeah, it's like specific lotion for your phone. Oh my God. But yeah, oh, this is the one that I found. I actually, to get this photo, her senior yearbook photo is not available. I couldn't find it anywhere online. I had to call the local library of the county that she grew up in and tried to find the yearbook, and they didn't have it on file. But the woman who ran the that's the like historical or whatever section, the research section of the library, knew someone who graduated around the same time that Susan did and had the yearbook I was looking for. So she borrowed it from him and scanned all of it. And I was like, you are amazing, lady. Oh my God, like incredible. So that's how I got Susan's senior yearbook photo. Look at that hair. Crazy. Anyway, yeah, I'm just like kind of insane. And like, here's another update. This one I think she made in 2015. Is this my first book? It is my first book. And I don't know if I ever want to write another one because this was a lot. This is another self-portrait of hers. So yeah, you guys are getting some exclusive look. Like, no one's seen her new self-portraits because she uploaded all of these new ones and then like deleted them after a couple of months. It was very weird. I didn't really understand it. But yeah. I don't know if you guys, how familiar you are with her work. Here's another one. She did this in the 90s. So like her self-portraits, I think what's interesting, and it says a lot about her, is that she chose in her own artwork and these are photos she took of herself and edited herself. She chose to be nude in a lot of them. She chose to have like cuts on her, bondage, like elements of that in her own artwork. And I think that while people with personality disorders, especially BPD, tend to be influenced by the people around them and like can take on similar personality traits, it's obvious that she was interested in this stuff. And like the police ask her about her tattoos, and she's like, "Oh, Travis made me get them." But then she told me that she like designed her neck tattoo. And I was like, "You designed it, but he made you get it? Like, what are you saying?" You know what I mean? Like, it's not lining up. So she's obviously into it. I agree. I think that she probably feels a lot of shame. Like, I think that I can't even imagine being in her situation, but I really actually can't. But I could see how she wouldn't be super into it now because it would remind her of things. But I do think that even if he introduced her to it, that she, like, if you learn about something, you either like it or you don't, you know? And it's obvious that she was okay with it. It's all over her artwork. So I thought that that was interesting. But yeah. Any other questions? I do think that she, oh my God, the computers. I do think that she became more and more, it was very obvious that she became more and more uncomfortable the more we talked, and eventually backed out of the whole thing and said she didn't want anything to do with it. So I thought that was strange, but you know, what can you do? Yeah, I'm not saying he wasn't controlling, because I think that he was very determined and he wanted, he's like, the website, you know, to keep up this business, we need to be consistent. We need to create a lot of content. And he was doing all of this writing, like constantly writing for it and building it. And I do think that he was controlling in that sense. Like, it's a personality type of someone who's an entrepreneur. So I do think he was considered, like, again, he was very specific in the way he wanted things done. However, that doesn't mean that somebody is being abusive. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that he wasn't like ever difficult or he never, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that they had fights and stuff. I mean, I know they did. Oh my God. I'll save that for later. So this is Ray, Travis's first wife. This is at Mississippi State University where they met. But yeah, she wasn't accusing him of only being controlling. She painted him as an abusive, sadistic psychopath. Absolutely. And I don't think that he was. I think he was into sadomasochism. I think he was sexually sadistic, but I don't think he was emotionally sadistic. And there's a big difference. You can be into BDSM, but it doesn't mean that your sexual interests in sadism or whatever is going to make you a piece of shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's not the same. One is in a sexual context, and then there's the rest of life. And Travis actually wrote about that. He said that he didn't like the BDSM community because he felt like they tried to be too official. He had this quote, he said, "Contracts are for lawyers." He didn't like the idea that, oh, I'm going to sign this slave contract and now it's real. Like, that was his outlook on it. And he's like, no, there's real life, and then there's the sexual context, and then there's this business. And he really did compartmentalize them. And I think that Susan struggled with compartmentalizing them. I think that she took on this role, or she took on the submissive role of their relationship dynamic. And, she wrote about the fact that he called her worthless and stuff like that. Um, and that she really took it to heart. And I think for him, it was in a sexual context. Like, why would he be with someone who he thought was worthless? Like, one of the women that he was talking to at the time, that's another thing. Susan really didn't like that he was talking to other women, but he told her from day one, he told her, maybe not day one, but he told her early on in their relationship that he liked other women. So she knew about that. And she didn't like it, which that's fine if she didn't like it, but she didn't have to keep going along with it, But yeah, here's another one of Susan. Like, just her face, like, that's a very striking face. It doesn't strike me as like demure or helpless. And this was taken this is such a weird, when the Barbie movie came out, I thought of this photo. This is one of her art photos that she made. I mean, I think she's pretty. Like, here, when she's not bald, like, I think a lot of people did. Like, see, look at this. She's wrapped herself in like wire and stuff. She had tons of self-portraits like this. But yeah, I just really, sorry for the reflection. Wait, why what? The degrading quality got to it, and she did not know or care, tried to deal with it constructively. I think she had poor emotional regulation issues, and I think that I don't think she even had to say a lot. I think when she got arrested, just the fact that they had a porn website was enough for, like, it said it all. Like, oh, this is the girl here. That is Rhonda. This is the girl that wrote that letter about Susan. The girl with the hat. But yeah, here's another of her. I am so sorry. I'm like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Anyways. Oh, here's Susan. This is the photo she had in her email. This was her in 2019-ish. When we first started talking, and then she like dyed her hair blonde. I thought that was interesting. But yeah. And Travis. Anyway, I should probably get off my phone. I thought this was interesting too, though. Like, lots of interesting artwork. Well, I did think it was interesting that a couple people made that comment about her. Like Richard said, she's not some innocent little princess. She's not as innocent as everyone thinks she is. This one is interesting. This is a close-up. YouTube's gonna kill me. This is blurred though. This is a photo of Susan tattooing herself. So that is so interesting, being on the jury. They didn't even talk about that. First of all, the jury only was told that Susan shot Travis twice. So they weren't even making a decision based on actual facts because Susan shot him 3 times. What is that? It's Susan. She's tattooing on, it's not her crotch, it's like her pelvis, her pelvic area, where she's tattooing. Here, I'll show it again, like a close-up. You can see, like, but yeah. Yeah. Oh, here is the famous photo of, this is a photo of Susan holding this was posted online. Travis and Susan, he took her out to go to teach her how to shoot. He bought this gun specifically for her to teach her self-defense. And this is the gun that she killed him with. And there's a photo of her online holding it. So kind of eerie. This Mossberg. Definitely eerie. It's a bit more blurred here because yeah. He taught her how to shoot. Yes, he taught her how to shoot like 3 weeks before she killed him with the same gun that he taught her how to use. You should make one of those pictures with disturbing backstory videos. Huh, that is a good idea, actually. That is a good idea. Oh my God, James. I should do that. That is interesting. Yeah, no problem. There are literally hundreds of photos. Like, partly I want to make, yeah, what little ad revenue I'm even getting. I would really love to be able to do this full time, but I really need to grow my channel more. There's not, yeah, I would love to be able to do this full time. I didn't, oh, do you want to see a photo of Susan and her kids? So yeah, 50%. I'm kidding. Yeah, and again, I want to say, like, I'm not, oh my God, no way. Poor Samantha. There's no way I can't even talk about that photo. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I want to say, like, I'm not really hating on Susan. Like, I'm not intentionally trying to, like, it's just there. It's all there. That's the information. That is what people are saying. That is based on her own behavior. Like, yeah. Honestly, at the end of the day, like, Travis really, he didn't deserve to die. I am exposing her, but, like, you know, she did it. Like, did regular videos. Stephanie Harlow. I feel like I know who that is. I've actually put out a lot more videos in the last month or two even than I had previously. So I'm really, like, definitely being more consistent now that my book is done. But the thing is, I'm a perfectionist and I need to stop being. I, like, do way too much. I love researching, but sometimes I do too much research and I want to, like, add all the details and stuff. And then it takes me so long. And I'm like, I just need to put out stories and tell stories. Like, they don't all have to be like the Israel Keys documentary, even though I want to make them all like that because I'm kind of insane myself. But yeah. Oh, some of you probably saw this the other day, but her collar tattoo. I drew out a copy of it because I was like, this is crazy. I wanted to like understand the whole design. And this is as close as I got. It's hibiscus flowers, a crucifix, and like vines. So it's like this. That's a huge tattoo. This tattoo she got, it was for their 10th wedding anniversary. And it was like supposed to be like a collar, like, you know, she's owned, that kind of thing. It was supposed to be like a 10th wedding anniversary thing. And she got that like the October, like mid-October, and then learned how to shoot in November and then killed him December 2nd, 2003. And I'm like, who gets a massive tattoo for their anniversary and then like a month later kills? Like, she told me that she had a mental breakdown, but I think that a lot more played into all of that. It's just such a drastic change. Like, yeah. I'm sorry, I could talk about this forever. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate it. I mean, honestly, AABB, it's true. Like, if I just constantly put out content, it doesn't even matter how accurate it is. Like, it doesn't matter. I could just put it out. I mean, it matters to me, but like, I think probably like, I don't know. I think you can still make accurate videos without like endless details and still make good content. I've tried to put out shorter videos that are like 25 or whatever, 25 minutes here and there. I still have stuff like the Brian Koberger thing. I have like an hour of that's edited. And I never put it out because so much time went by following the case. And I was like, shit, now I need to go get the updates on what's happening with his trial, which keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back because they keep having like all these little hearings about things. And his family is just sick of it. It does over the long term. I mean, you're right. I think that it does matter. James, you have ADHD too? Same. Yeah, I mean, thank you. I should put it out. I think I'm gonna, with the Brian Koberger thing, I want to get the updates and then I'll put it out. But at that point, it will be over an hour long. And I went through, maybe other people did do this, I don't know, but someone made a 3D model of the house. And they had like, there was this website that had a 3D model of the entire house and you could go through it and like, it was like a virtual crime scene and look at all of the sites where he killed people. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So I like went through the whole thing in the video. But yeah, YouTube shorts with interesting facts. Yeah, I should do that. I actually did make a short that I haven't edited yet, but it's a short showing old photos of serial killers and using AI to enhance their photos. And some of them are crazy. Like, they're very interesting. I should definitely do more shorts. James, you should. You have a lot of good ideas. You should start your own channel. I'm serious. Like, do it. But yeah, consistency is definitely a big thing. Sorry, Brooke, what did you say? It's interesting that her daughter blocked you. I'm dying to know how she feels and how her mother's opinion was shaped, or how much her opinion was shaped by her mother. So I find all of that interesting because Susan told me that for a certain period of time that her daughter wouldn't talk to her, um, which I thought was interesting. She didn't tell me the details on that, so I don't know, but they are talking now. Um, but yeah, I think her daughter, her second husband said that he came home and Susan was standing on the porch and her daughter was standing in front of her with her arms crossed like this. And they had her third husband's like stuff all piled on the porch. And Susan had changed all the locks in the house while he was gone. We're basically like, this is over, you're done. And apparently her daughter was like, no wonder you're getting divorced for the third time. And again, I don't know what the hell happened between them, but he told me, he was like, I was never abusive to her. She has a lot of issues. He told me that she's unstable. And she wrote about him and said that he like made rude comments about her past. So I don't know what's true and what's not. He told me that wasn't accurate, but that her mother and brother made rude comments about her past. So again, I don't know. But her daughter clearly felt that, like, she clearly took her mom's side. Though I feel like that stuff changed probably when they were homeless. Because after that, after Susan left her third husband, she actually went to live with Travis's mom. Travis's mother allowed Susan to live with her. I think because even though Susan lied and said that Travis's mom like abused their kids and stuff so she could get custody of them, Travis's mom still like wanted to be a part of her grandchildren's life and like let Susan live with her, which was wild to me. But Susan lived there and then after that like left for a couple reasons. I don't want to say so much. I'm like gonna, but that was a wild story. The reason that she left was like, what? But then when they were homeless, I found a blog that Del wrote about being homeless, and she said that the experience was horrible. She said that she got raped while they were homeless, and yeah, not having like a proper place to bathe, and not like, it was her mom, it was Susan, the two kids, and some of their pets. So they were all in this van together, and Del wrote a blog about it. And I put some of that in the book, some of her blog. But yeah, like, it's not a good experience. And I'm sure she has issues with all of it. And I am curious, I know Del blocked me, but I am curious what Susan said to her about me. Because Susan accused me of like lying to her. And that's why I wasn't, but that's why her husband had to call me and like we had to talk. And yeah, I'm gonna actually, Brooke, I should put that in another article. Along with the letter from Rhonda, I'll do a separate article and I'll talk about the time while they were homeless. Who is Del? Okay, Del is Susan's and Travis's daughter. They had two kids together. Del was their older daughter, and then they had a son named Neil. So that's in the photo that I showed about of their family. I'll pull it up again if you want. But so the kids were there when it happened. I write about them in the book, but not extensively. I mean, Dell blocked me and her brother didn't want to talk, but apparently they also, when they left, like they went to a small town in Mississippi and like news spread, like everyone knew about it and like they got bullied and stuff. So yeah, I think that they had a really difficult time just living basically. Um, which is totally understandable. Like, I really feel like I can't imagine being in that situation. I cannot imagine if my mother killed my father and I was 9, because I think Dell was 9 and Neil was like 8. Like, it's just horrible. It's like, whose side do you take? It's 10 times worse than a divorce. But yeah, I feel like at that point, it's almost like, what are you supposed to do? It is a very messed up situation for a kid to be in. Oh, James, you were asking about the book cover. I should put a doll on it. This is the cover of it. You may have already seen it, but I was super happy with the artwork. Sorry, I'm looking for that photo of Susan and her kids. I'm getting close to it. I have so many pictures in here. Oh, yeah, here's a photo from their website of Travis shaving her head. I am curious like how this will change how they perceive him because I don't know what she had been telling them about Travis, but everything I learned about him, like he didn't seem like a bad guy, to be honest. Just my own opinion. But thank you. Brooke, did you have any more questions about the kids? Because I could talk a little bit more about that. Oh my God, I have never posted this photo anywhere. This is Susan. Ah, fuck it, I'll show you. This is Susan with her third husband. So she married this man. He was an old friend from college, and she married him less than a year after she killed Travis. This is Susan and him. His name is William, and their 2 kids at this like medieval fair thing. So she's in a turtleneck, of course. Oh, here she is with, okay, so this is Susan, her third husband, and the 2 kids. So that's Dell over here, and that's Neil. How did I find all of these? Actually, Dell posted one of the photos on her blog, which is deleted now. But I have that. That's the one I'm scrolling to look for. It was a photo of her in the van with her folks. And then I talked to William, like I interviewed him. So got those photos. Been curious about how exposed they were to everything that was going on. Did they only make content at night when the kids were asleep? So the police actually asked Susan about that. They were actually asked if the kids were a part of it and if they were looking at like a child porn situation. And Susan was like, absolutely not. It was adults only. That was never an aspect. But she did tell police that Travis built a office for himself outside of the house because as the kids got older, he would be on the computer, like building the website. And Susan said that she didn't think Neil noticed as much. She said Neil was a little more oblivious, but that Dell was very smart and like observant, and that she would go to talk to her dad. And she came to Susan one time and was like, I always see weird things on daddy's computer. So there were occasions where Travis would be working and Del would see things. And that's why like, obviously, neither of them were okay with that. And so that's why he had an office. He was like, okay, it's getting to the point where, like, I can't be hiding this stuff. I think that also played a huge role in Susan's decision, because when the kids are super young, like, you can pretty much, like, keep them in their rooms and do whatever. But as they get older and older, they're going to be more independent. It's going to be harder to get them to go to sleep. They're going to be more observant and hearing things, all that. They're going to become more curious. Like, what is this website? Stuff like that. They're going to start going on the internet. And, like, I think that Susan essentially just kind of lost it. I think she had a really hard time with all of that. So the kids were not involved in any way. Neil pretty much seemed like what Susan said about him was that he pretty much didn't notice. She didn't think he noticed, but she said that their daughter did notice, like, weird things on the computer, is what she said. And then I mentioned this earlier, but the police were like, did the kids wake up? Because they were both in the house at the time. There's that whole misconception. People believe that the kids were at boarding school, but they were not. The boarding school was for older students, but they were 8 and 9. So they actually went to the elementary school in French camp and lived at home. And they were both in their rooms asleep. And Susan said that Travis listened to loud music and would play video games a lot, so she didn't think that the gunshots woke up the kids. But they were there, and then, like, CPS showed up and took them into custody, and then they waited and gave the kids to Susan's mom and all of this. Then there was that custody hearing. And yeah, so that essentially is basically, they were, like, trying to keep their kids away from it. But I think that as they got older, like, that's a problem. How do you hide that from kids? Did they live in a mansion? Okay, so honestly, the house they lived in was so small. So it's one thing if, like, sometimes the kids would go and stay with their grandma. But, like, at some point they're gonna notice, like, that's really a difficult thing. It's such a tiny house to hide from them. And, like, there's weird stuff all over the place. Like, do you know what I mean? That's a difficult thing to hide. Just my opinion. But yeah. I don't know. I guess she could be pretending. I don't think she was. Why can't I find this fucking photo? Sorry. But I don't think she was pretending to be her own assistant. But I did find it very strange. I'm like, did the assistant even pass this shit on to her? Because I wouldn't turn that down, but that's just me. Oh yeah, so I found this photo again. This is not the one that Del posted. I don't remember where. This might have been on her Facebook. She blocked me on Facebook too. But yeah, this is Del and her husband. This is her husband, Del, Susan, and then Neil. So yeah. She probably didn't bother passing it on, to be honest. Honestly, maybe not. I don't know. Your loss. That's honestly how I see it. Whatever. I tried. It would have been cool for her. It would have been cool for me. I didn't see the downside, but, like, it's not my channel. It's not my business. So whatever. Yeah. It's almost been 3 hours and my voice is starting to get like sore. So I'm probably going to end this in a few minutes. But oh my God. I would pretend to be my own assistant even if I had an assistant. I don't know. I'm not like one for revenge. Normally, if I'm like over something or I'm done with saying I'm done with someone, that sounds cold, I guess, but that's kind of how I see it. Like, I don't want to spend any more time on that person. Like, I'm not going to be like long-term revenge plan. Like, that's just so, I'm like, no, we're just blocked. Like, that's kind of more my thing, but I don't know. Isn't her new husband like 10 years younger than her? Yes. Travis was 3 years younger than her, and her fourth husband now is 10 years younger, which I thought was super interesting. He was really nice. I found it interesting when he called me to talk to me about the issue that Susan and I started having. He said that she has a lot of anxiety, and he himself, her fourth husband now, and he's not the only one who said this. He said she has a lot of paranoia. Just saying. The fact that a number of people have now said that Susan was very paranoid. Like, I heard this one story about Susan hiding in a closet because she didn't want to interact with people. I find that to be very strange behavior. If you think about how someone has such bad anxiety and they're super paranoid, and then they end up killing their husband when they clearly didn't have to. He was like asleep. So that, to me, it's mental distress. Clearly mental distress. Social anxiety. She definitely had some of the social anxiety. I think that's why she thrived on the internet. She didn't have to be personable with people. She seemed to struggle with anxiety. Her husband also said this to me. His name is Robert, her fourth husband. He said to me that she is much better with emailing. And it is true. Our phone call, like, she really struggled to answer questions. But in the emails, like, it's almost like talking to a different person. They're so well constructed. She can think about what she's saying and like see what she's written out and how she wants to, like, she has time to think about it. But she definitely struggled with the phone call. And I wanted to do a second phone call, but like, I don't think she ever went for it. I don't think she wanted to do it. But yeah. Number 5. Honestly, Brooke, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, I think that for most people, if you're able to construct an email, you put more thought into it, you have more time to think about what you want to say. But I think the discrepancy is sometimes, like, the discrepancy for her seemed to be very wide. Like, some of her answers to me were like incoherent, I did, yeah, I recorded them. I have the calls. There's some snippets of the phone calls on Murder PM. You're a subscriber. Paranoia plus guns is a dangerous mix. Absolutely. I cannot get over the fact that like, there was this theory that she was like tied up or whatever and locked away. And I'm like, he literally went to sleep and she had free reign to walk around the house with guns in the house. Someone who's like holding, this might sound weird, but if I was holding someone captive and I can't even relate to doing that, but I would not let them freely walk around my house that had 10 loaded guns, or 11 at that point. Like, that's not something someone who's worried about their spouse killing them would do, you know? James, I would never do that. Honestly, she sounds kind of shady regardless, but um, she has a very sweet voice and she was very nice to me, um, until she accused me of lying about writing the book, which was weird. But yeah, no problem. Let me know if you have any more questions. 3 hours, shit. Wow, the time has gone by so quick. That's crazy. Um, but yeah, I definitely just want to. The thing that's so crazy about the story is like I don't have to. I know like you have to frame stuff because that's how you create a narrative, but like I would never fake anything or manipulate the interviews. And honestly, they are just wild in and of themselves. Like I don't have to do any editing because they're just crazy anyway. But the only thing I need to edit with Susan, and I think it's unethical to edit stuff like that anyway, so I would never do it. Plus, the truth is more interesting to me than like packaged information. But what was I saying? Oh, the only thing that I have to edit with Susan's interviews is she says, you know, a lot. And there are like gaps, like long pauses. So that's the only thing I'd really have to edit just to save fucking time. But yeah, besides that. I should do more live streams. Extremely informative. Oh yeah. I actually am gonna try. I want to try and do like a live stream at least every couple weeks or every week on whatever, because I really like doing them. They're chill. She definitely did get paranoid toward me. I got an email from her and she said, I'm getting really tired of this artist biography ruse. And that was confusing for a number of reasons. But I'm like, I emailed her back and was like, do you think I'm not writing a book about you? Like, you're an artist and I'm telling your life story. Like, what do you mean? It was very confusing. And then she like got back to me and was like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's not what I meant. Or whatever. I don't know. She said that it's weird. In some of her emails, she would like thank me. She's like, thank you so much for talking to me about all this. It's really helped me like look at my past and like evaluate it. And then in that email, she was like, I'm really burned out by you digging through my past. And I do feel bad. Like I'm not, I wasn't trying to cause her any issue, but I do understand that like it can be emotionally draining. But I thought that stuff was interesting because I had tried to distance myself and like I took a while off from talking to her. Within those few months, I took a few weeks off from even contacting her just so I could like create some space between us. Because I thought we were getting kind of friendly and I was trying to navigate the situation in a good way because like you have to build trusts with someone, but then also like, you know what I mean? It can get tricky. But she definitely started getting paranoid. I think it's because I started interviewing more people and I think that she may have talked to one of them. I'm not sure. Because you can talk to content creators. Holy shit! That's a lot. That's a lot of people. My live streams definitely. I mean, I don't even mostly get like 35 people. My live streams are like 15 to 20 people. Yeah, 15 right now, which like is fine. You guys are active. You ask good questions, interesting topics. So honestly, I feel like 35,000 concurrent viewers would be overwhelming. Like, are people being genuine and like interested, or are they like trolling you, you know? I had a troll yesterday that was so weird. They oh, this is not happy days. Thank you. I'm glad that you like the Murder Talk Radio. I'm definitely gonna be putting out more. Murder Talk Radio is Murder Pop's podcast. There are 2 episodes out now if you want to listen to them. And yeah. That's strange too, AABB, because why would you think that? If she thought that, like, that is just wild. She was my first interview, so that also could have contributed to her being willing to talk to me. I didn't have other interviews and stuff. She definitely wanted to control the narrative. I mean, she wanted to read it before it went out, and like she wanted to edit it. She said because it's my story, so she wanted control of it. And I'm like, well, then, you know, you need to go write your own tell-all book about it, because like I'm a journalist. I'm not gonna, you know. We were very friendly, but I wouldn't call her my friend. I mean, I wouldn't call most people my friend probably, but yeah, it's so unethical. There's no way she would ever be editing the book. But yeah. Well, if you guys have any last questions, ask them, because I'm about to end the live stream. But I really thank you so much for everyone who showed up and interacted with me, said hi, asked questions. Like, I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And Brooke, I will, after this, I'm going to go put that whole letter in an article. I don't know when it will go out, but I'm going to make sure I do that. And yeah. Thank you so much, Ernest. I really appreciate you saying hi. Just ignore the trolls. I definitely try. Though this last troll said they had bodies in their closet, and that was weird. I like blocked them. And then I thought, you know, there actually didn't was it Nicholas Cruz? Who was it? Some people have said that. They've said creepy things like that, and then it turned out to be true. And I was just like, I'm assuming they're just fucking with me, but like, what if they actually have bodies in their closet? It's like Patrick Bateman being like, I killed a lot of people. And people think that he's like joking. I don't know. But yeah. Thank you, Ernest. Thank you, Brooke, James, AABB. Thank you guys so much. This is not happy days. Yeah, yes. It was the guy that did the Parkland shootings. Less than a year later, he was writing stuff like what that troll wrote on here. He was writing that shit on the internet. Not I have bodies, but you know, he was like flat out talking about crimes and stuff. Anyway, mwah. Thank you all so much. You're phenomenal. I will be here all week. Okay, I'm ending the live stream. Everyone take care. Bye.